Coming up next on Arizona Horizon's Journalists Roundtable, the Justice Department goes ahead with a criminal charge against Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and we'll discuss this week's U.S. Senate debate between John McCain and Ann Kirkpatrick. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon's Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Jeremy Duda of the Arizona Capital-Times, Bob Christie of the Associated Press, and Mike Sunnix of the Phoenix Business Journal. Sheriff Joe Arpaio faces federal criminal contempt for violating a federal court order on racial profiling. Not a surprise, I guess, that this came down. Still kind of a surprise, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all probably expected this to be coming since earlier this year when Judge Snow referred the case to the U.S. Attorney's Office to take a look at whether criminal contempt charges would be warranted. So I think we've all been kind of expecting this to come down, but that doesn't change the fact that this is still a gigantic bombshell on the political scene, especially, about 4 weeks before the election, the day before early ballots go out, and this is, definitely bad news for Arpaio.
And again, this is for violating the 2007 federal racial profiling order. It's so interesting in these cases. It's not necessarily what happened, it's what happened afterwards that the court was so upset about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The ACLU sued Arpaio's office for these immigration patrols in 2009. And it worked its way through the courts. In 2011, Judge Snow said that violates the Constitution. Sheriff stopped doing it, and for almost a year and a half, more than a year and a half, the sheriff kept these patrols going, where they would go out into primarily minority neighborhoods with their deputies. They would pull people over who were brown, and they would ask them for their IDs. It was a violation of the Constitution, as the judge had already ordered. And so now we have, after several more years of hearings, the judge saying, not only did you violate it, but they had lengthy hearings earlier this year where they had evidence, and the sheriff testified and other people testified, and the judge issued a ruling that said, no doubt, you violated my order, you did it intentionally, you've been found, I've found you guilty of civil contempt, and you should be charged with criminal contempt. And he referred it over, and that's what got filed this week.
Well, like Jeremy said, the politics of this is crazy. This is an outgoing administration, outgoing Justice Department. They've had a long fight with Arpaio over racial profiling, over the immigration raids, which we'll talk about. And right before early voting starts, right before the home stretch of the election, they do this. And you see Arpaio's statement in response to this, say it's all politics, it's all the Obama administration going after them. And Arpaio is already in his toughest re-election ever. And this could tip the scales.
Do you think this could make a difference in the vote, in the sense that it might get folks who thought they were tired of Arpaio, but that now they sense somehow the Justice Department is piling on and it's not fair?
Possibly. I think that'll probably gain credence with his hardcore supporters, but a lot of folks in the middle. I mean, we've seen his vote totals kind of eroding from election to election. Like Mike said, it's his toughest re-election, and we say that every 4 years, at least for the past several re-elections. This year, it's truer than ever, and I think certainly it might bolster the support among his supporters, but I think it'll probably do a lot more damage among people who are kind of wavering.
Yeah, that cuts both ways. I mean, it could galvanize. It's the same thing with Trump that's going on. It could galvanize the hardcore supporters, older folks, working class whites that support Joe and Trump. All this attention, negative attention towards them, could galvanize them and turn them out. Conversely, it could turn out young people, Latinos, which we always say, are they going to turn out this cycle in big numbers and kind of change the landscape here? And that hasn't happened before. Something like this could turn out actually both camps in this Arpaio race.
What do you think?
Well, I think that, first off, let's deal with the red herring in the room, which is that Arpaio is saying this is the U.S. Justice Department unfairly going against me. This is the ACLU joined by the Justice Department in a lawsuit, and the judge, a federal judge, for months heard testimony and put out a voluminous finding that said, here's the facts, here's what you did, you're guilty in civil, and I'm recommending, he recommended the criminal charges. So it's kind of unfair to say it's the Justice Department. They're looking at the paperwork. The case is there. All they got to do, they went in front of the judge this week and said, we're going to file
I certainly think folks on the Arpaio camp could certainly point to the timing of this.
What would they want them, wait till when?
The timing of
After
this certainly
November 9th,
the
go ahead and
timing of
file-
this certainly has a lot to do with the campaign.
But if
You can't disengage the two. Whether you agree or disagree with the decision
Right.
to prosecute him, this is going to have a big impact on the campaign. And the timing of this was very fortuitous to Mr. Pinzone.
But what do you do, Jeremy? Do you wait again till November 9th to do this, and then once November 9th hit, let's say he's elected, and the voters go, well, wait a minute, if we'd have known this, we wouldn't have put, I mean, what do you do?
I mean, there's certainly that point to be made, and I mean, this has been dragging on for a long time. You can't. It's hard to say that anything's been expedited here to really bump it up for the election now. I mean, this was a status conference. Arpaio's lawyers claimed they were kind of caught by surprise. Didn't really seem to be expecting this then. But I mean, these hearings were beginning. Everyone knew this was probably coming. And in terms of the claims that this is politically motivated, where we've seen the Obama administration kind of back off on opportunities to really go after Arpaio in the past. And I know we've heard the converse of that argument in the past, where Democrats and Arpaio opponents saying, why aren't you going harder at this guy? Like in 2012 with the abuse of power investigation, no charges. Some misuse of funds stuff, no charges.
Everything with Joe is politically motivated from Joe and from his opponents.
Right. And in this case, they filed a misdemeanor. Okay, so even if he's convicted, he won't automatically be. If he's found guilty of a felony, you're automatically disqualified and you're done. So he could potentially, if they just keep with the misdemeanor charge, win the election and keep on for another 4 years.
Something else that was interesting is that they capped the sentencing at 6 months. And by capping the sentencing at 6 months, that means he doesn't necessarily get a jury trial.
That's the nature of the charge. That's correct. He does not only necessarily, but by rule in the Ninth Circuit, under federal law, under federal court rules, if you only face less than 6 months in jail, you don't have the right to a jury trial. So he's going to have to fight to get a jury trial. And of course, that's going to put it in front of a judge who has a nice thick sheet of paper from the other federal judge laying out all the facts in the case and the conclusions, and it should be, I mean, one would think it shouldn't be that hard a case to get a conviction on.
And should he be convicted of this? I think it's kind of hard to imagine a judge actually sentencing Arpaio, who's 84 years old now, to any actual jail time, but the threat of it, at least there, is kind of ominous.
He could just serve it at 10 City.
Yeah.
The other point is there are two other portions of this same referral that the Justice Department has taken under advisement. They couldn't file them as they were also contempt, but they held too long ago. So now the Justice Department is looking at those as whether they should file them as obstruction of justice.
And those
cases.
include the two aides and the attorney, correct?
That's the two aides and the attorney, and it's for investigating the federal judge, Judge Snow, during this whole series of hearings over the last several years. They launched an investigation of the federal judge himself to find out if he was corrupt.
And even in this complaint, we have a couple of incidents of video collection that the judge that didn't do what he was told to do. That's what the judge is saying. That's what the Justice Department is now claiming. So that's in there as well.
That's right. And so if they come back and they file the felony charges, then we're talking, obstruction of justice, major felony. You don't walk away without prison time.
The real point here politically is how do the Arpaio supporters, the Trump voters essentially, react to this? Does this energize them more? He's a fundraising machine. He's got a big money advantage. Does that matter now with this? Does that take that advantage away because you've raised Pinzone's profile so much?
And I want to get to that in a second because we have a poll coming up a little bit later on. But there was also a lawsuit regarding workplace raids, and this is with Puente, Arizona, and it's, the idea that these identity theft laws, they say, targeted illegals, and it was just unconstitutional. And so this suit now had a hearing this week. I mean, he's got stuff in courtrooms all over town.
That is. This is a case where he's actually been faring a little bit better. The original judge in the case, he issued an injunction on this law that Arpaio and before under the earlier administration, Andy Thomas as well, were using for these workplace raids. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals earlier this year, they overturned that injunction. So now they're back in court, kind of arguing the merits of this case, which is based on this identity theft law that was in, I believe, it was the Legal Arizona Workers Act from back around 2007, 2008, and it was originally intended to target employers who hire illegal immigrants, but it's never really been used that way. It's been used pretty much almost exclusively by Arpaio to go after the actual people.
And the suit says it was used for deportation more than law enforcement, and Arpaio's side says, oh no, we're just trying to protect victims of identity theft.
That's correct, and that's what the Ninth Circuit ruled. There was a U.S. District Court judge who had put a injunction against that law a couple of years ago, and it went to the Ninth Circuit. And earlier this year, the Ninth Circuit said no. It's a state law that says if you get an ID and it's a fake ID and you use it to get a job, that's a violation of the state identification laws, and the local authorities are more than able to go in and arrest you for that. And that's what they were doing. They were going in and raiding car washes and restaurants and other places with a lot of illegal immigrant workers and hauling them off to jail, not because they were undocumented, but because they were using illegal IDs.
On the legal side, this is the same thing that happened with employer sanctions, happened with 1070. What's a federal, is it all a federal purview to enforce immigration laws? Or are there areas where the state and local governments can do that? And one thing that really hasn't come up in this, of course they were going after undocumented, unauthorized immigrants politically on this, but there's a lot of folks in town, construction workers, other folks, that work with fake IDs that are legal residents or American citizens because they're trying to avoid child support or criminal warrants, or they have something in their past and they don't want their employer to know about. That is out there. That's probably a lot of the instances, but from the media standpoint, from Arpaio and politically, it was focused on picking up illegal immigrants.
So what's next in that lawsuit? What do we expect?
Well, they still got to argue that out on the merits. You know, the injunction is out of the way, which very well might be a bad sign for Puente, for the groups who brought up this lawsuit. You know, the judges only issue that if they think there is a strong chance of success in the case. Obviously, the Ninth Circuit didn't believe that there is, so they didn't. So they have to go ahead and play this out all the way through the court system.
And this cuts both ways again for Arpaio's argument. For the folks that are tired of him, they see all these lawsuits out here. It's just always getting sued, what he's costing the county. But for his supporters, look, here's the Obama administration, here's these ACLU, these activist groups going after him, and so does that energize them?
Well, let's talk about those supporters and those critics. A new poll shows, and this was shocking, the headline, until you saw the 5% plus or minus here. Paul Penzone up by 10 points over Sheriff Joe Arpaio? Yeah,
that was really shocking. And you look at it, and first off, it has a lot of things. This poll has a lot of things going for it in that it's a live caller poll. A lot of the polls that we see being pushed around are not live caller polls. That means they lose their credibility right away. It's a computer calling up, and you push 1, 2, 3, depending on who you like. This is a live caller poll. The sample size is a little low. That's why the margin of percentage margin error is a little higher than we like to see. But 350, 400 people in Maricopa County, a nice spread of Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, and he's 70% of Democrats are against him, which is what one could expect. But on the Republican side, he's also very close, 51, 52%. And then the Independents just show that's why we got to the 10%.
I think the one thing about the poll was, what's the number on men? I think he was trailing with men.
He is losing among men, and it was 55 to 38.
Yeah, I think that if somebody's going to doubt that poll would be something you would look at. I mean, if you look at the national race, you look at other races, the gender divide, men are with Republicans, women are not. They're with the Democrats. And so if you look at that, I mean, people question a lot. There's not a lot of polling out there anymore anywhere, and so people question those. Other people think the race is a lot closer. Other polls, have it tight. Somebody told me that Arpaio was up 5. This poll is out of the norm, so it could show a change in the race.
Sure. Another interesting tidbit is you look at, they break it down by age group demographics, and Penzone in this poll is beating Arpaio on every one of them except for 65 plus, and he's got his historic base of support out in Sun City with the retirees, with older voters, but it seems like that support is really slipping among everyone else. And I don't know that, 10 points seems like a heck of a lot. I don't know that this race is really that far out of hand for Arpaio if he's losing it all. Right. But, and I know the Arpaio folks, they believe this is going to be a close race as well, but this certainly has to be a terrible omen for him.
Well, let's say it's plus or minus 5 points. That says that it's 50-50, right? So it's a tight race. We know that. That's what this. We know that Arpaio is facing the toughest election of his career, and this poll simply kind of reinforces that as a snapshot in time.
Okay, what's hurting Arpaio the most? If let's say this again. You talk about the outlier for men, and that does seem very unusual. But the idea that the over 65 vote is the only vote that he seems to be carrying, that doesn't seem all that unusual. That kind of makes sense. Let's give this poll some sense of credence here. What's hurting him the most? The court stuff? Is Trump hurting him?
I think the fatigue over the court stuff and the cost to the county, and it just seems to never end. It seems to go on, and this would be his 7th term. And so it's a change election. We're seeing that across the, maybe people aren't going to end up voting that way, but people want change. And Joe's been there a long time, and people are kind of tired of this same episode playing over and over again.
Sure, I think it's kind of hard just to point to one particular thing that that's really hurting Arpaio now for all these years, but there's so many other, this piling on of all these lawsuits, all these controversies, all this money the county is spending on it, all that has been steadily chipping away at him for years. And then with this, criminal contempt of court stuff and the civil contempt of court, I think that's really a major blow on top of all that.
And yet the survey was taken before the Justice Department went ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just on this racial profiling case alone, it's cost the taxpayers of Maricopa County $70 million. And it's going to keep on going until it's over. That's a huge amount of money that could do a lot of things.
I think the image of the state, if you go somewhere, London, you go to New York, you go to Chicago, people talk about our immigration debate, they talk about our sheriff. That comes up. I think a lot of people are fatigued by that and want to get that behind us because they think that's defining us. And business folks, tourism folks don't want that to define us.
Right, and the governor doesn't want it. The governor, if you look back at his first 2 years in office, which we're just wrapping up now, boy, oh boy, he hasn't touched this at all, and it's not by accident.
Well, and we should mention that Arpaio still has well over $1 million for a stretch run. Penzone, about a quarter of that amount. So,
sure, Penzone's also got support from outside groups that are running ads and mailers and
right.
stuff.
George Soros, the billionaire liberal, has come in and has already spent $300,000 on Joe Arpaio ads. This week he came in against Bill Montgomery with a buy. We don't know how much yet, but he's running ads right now against Bill Montgomery as county attorney.
Is he doing
George
that?
Soros.
Why's he doing that?
He's doing that in places across the United States of America where conservative law enforcement folks have been running the show. He unseated a prosecutor in Florida earlier this year who was, until this money came in, I think Soros spent $1 million against him, was a shoo-in to win. Gone. Montgomery talked to our reporters today, said, I don't know why he's doing this, but you could sense that there was a bit of unease. That's a lot of money at a late time, right as early voting is starting.
Especially in a race that no one thought was at
exactly.
all
That's what I mean. We were just as shocked too.
Yeah. All right. We had a U.S. Senate debate this week, right here in the Arizona PBS studios, and I thought it was lovely in the way it was moderated. I don't know about you guys, but I thought it was very well done. Anyway, compared to the presidential debates, this thing was like a tea party here.
Well, compared to the presidential debates, pretty much anything will count as civil at this point. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of, it certainly wasn't the, insult and invective you're seeing hurled there. You saw a lot of references to the presidential debate where, probably the first third to a half of it were McCain and Kirkpatrick really trying to use their respective parties' presidential nominees to tar each other with. Now, for Kirkpatrick, of course, that's she's kind of behind the eight ball on this because just 2 days before this debate, John McCain finally unendorsed Donald Trump after a year of spats and feuds with them. And McCain really went after her on Hillary Clinton. He's been doing it in his ads for months. Kirkpatrick just ran her first ad against McCain on the Trump issue last Monday, about a week and a half ago, just less than a week before he unendorsed. So it might be a little, kind of too little, too late.
As far as the debate is concerned, did Kirkpatrick do anything to gain any advantage? Did McCain do anything to lose his advantage?
This debate, this election for McCain is a third rail all around. Trump's a third rail for him. Does he, unendorsing him, does that mean all the Trump folks aren't going to vote for him in the election? And that's a big base of the Republican vote. Does unendorsing Trump and being in these fights help McCain with moderates, with independents? Is he standing up to the bully? I don't think we know, and I think Kirkpatrick's a side note on this in a way. This is all about McCain and Trump. We know Lindsey Graham's probably going to get McCain's vote now. That made the big news, but she didn't seem to seize the moment in going after McCain. It seems this week has been focused on McCain denouncing and then unendorsing Trump, and then Trump firing back at him. And she's kind of this side character.
Did Kirkpatrick do what she needed to do in this debate?
Yeah, I think it's fairly clear to everybody who watches she didn't. You have John McCain, who is a national figure, who he's got as he will tell you, I have 100% name ID. He's won election after election after election in Arizona, and there's no reason to think that he's not positioned to win this one. Kirkpatrick is from a rural part of the state, not well known in Metro Phoenix or in Tucson, where she really needs, well, Tucson she'll get votes because she's Democrat, but Metro Phoenix is where she has to make an impression. And I don't think she did that on Monday.
No, I didn't see anything that's really going to, looks like it's going to change her fortunes here. And that's unfortunate for her because, I mean, look at the recent polling. She's trailing by double digits in some of these polls. I'm hearing, you know, not publicly, but privately, a lot of Democrats kind of grumbling about what they feel like is a lackluster campaign, maybe better suited to her rural district up in northern Arizona with the boots than it is to a statewide electorate where most of your votes are coming from urban areas. So there was really no game changer here. And, you know, with only a few weeks to go, I don't really see where that's going to come from.
Yeah, I don't see where she picks up. You know, the big narrative nationally and other is Republican women dumping the GOP, voting against Trump, voting for Democrats, the other races. I don't think she's going to pick those up because of McCain dumping Trump. This may be the blessing of the race for McCain. He was already ahead in polls, and if he had stuck with Trump or this had gone on, maybe you saw a last-minute turnout thing that would help Democrats. I think she has a big challenge there.
Well, you know, to give her credit, she did what she needed to do to point out that John McCain has consistently, 60 times, she will say, said, no matter what Donald Trump does, I'm sticking with him. You know, with the, you know, I'm Trump saying I'm not going to protect the NATO allies, the Gold Star family. You know, you go on and on and on. McCain's stuck with Trump, and then finally, what does it take? It takes this revelation from last Friday, where these very lewd remarks that were recorded several years ago, that finally made him distance himself. Kirkpatrick says, John McCain, you've been whistling and waffling for months. Too little, too late. You're stuck with this guy.
I think that's a really effective argument. The only exception is that Trump continues to punch at McCain. So he's a victim in this too against Trump, and that helps him. If that wasn't there and he was just doing this for political expediency, that would be a great argument. But it complicates that argument because Trump McCain's on Trump's list now with Paul Ryan.
Yeah. Sure, and if any Republican politician in the country could withstand that, I mean, it's John McCain, who is, of course, Bob mentioned, he always likes to say about 100% MID. Every voter in this state has an opinion about John McCain, and it's going to be, for the most part, it's all going to be independent of Donald Trump. And if Kirkpatrick had spent, you know, the past 3, 4, 5 months really building up that narrative, tying McCain to Trump in the public eye, maybe things would look a little bit different. But, you know, like I said, a week and a half ago is the first time she really put it on TV. And if it's not on TV in this race, it probably doesn't matter that much.
All right.
So there are a few things probably that could come together, and maybe Kirkpatrick has a chance. We're going to have a high turnout Democratic election. We have marijuana, we have minimum wage on the ballot, which will bring more folks out. If the anti-McCain Republicans say, I'm not going to vote for that stinker now that he hasn't backed my candidate, Donald Trump, who knows?
Yeah, he gets booed. When they say McCain's name at Trump rallies, he gets booed as much as Hillary Clinton and Obama.
Got a couple minutes left here. We got to talk about the Corporation Commission debate. Horizon, we had our Corporation Commission debate, an hour-long debate here on this set. 5 candidates for 3 open seats. A lively affair and dark money. The alpha and omega of this one. As
always, you know, if we're talking CorpCom, you know, dark money is never that far away. It's always going to be the big issue. And of course, you know, Commissioner Burns, who's running for re-election, his quest to get the commission to force APS to disclose, what it was doing in 2014, whether it was behind this $3.2 million. That was, of course, the big issue. Tom Chabin, Bill Mundell, the 2 Democrats running. Obviously, all with them, Boyd Dunn and Andy Tobin, the other 2 Republicans, maybe not so much.
The 2 Democrats were acting like Bob Burns was the best thing that ever came down the pipe.
Yeah, that's the coalition there. And I think everybody expects Burns to be the top vote getter out of that because of name ID, because of party ID, and because of what he's done on this issue. You think maybe Andy Tobin's in there because of name ID, and then maybe the other ones battle for the last one.
Right. My impression of the debate was that Chabin and Mundell
Democrats,
really,
the
2 Democrats dominated the debate. I mean, that was just my impression. I didn't write about this one, but they seemed to have the dominating position throughout the debate. Andy Tobin, I don't think, helped himself with some criticism of our friendly moderator, and it just, I don't think he played well for him. Mr. Dunn tried to do what he could. Bob Burns sat back with a little smile on his face.
It was almost like all this mayhem was going on, and Bob Burns was just taking it all in, had a nice front row seat. But again, and when he spoke, no one interrupted him. I mean, everyone wanted to interrupt everyone else.
He's driving this race.
He really is, and in more ways. So give me 3. Who are the 3?
I mean, if I had to guess now, I mean, this is still Arizona. I got to guess the 3 Republicans, but given kind of a lot of stuff that's going on, maybe one of the Democrats could slip in.
I'll say the 3 Republicans, conventional wisdom, voter registration.
All 3, huh? What do you think, Bob?
I think it's going to split. I think we'll probably get Tobin. He's well known across the state. Bob Burns is an incumbent. He's, people will punch him. I think people are worried about solar enough that they'll vote for one of the Democrats.
All right. Good to have you here, guys. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Monday on Arizona Horizon, a new report from the Pew Research Center details the political engagement of Americans with disabilities. And we'll hear about how new technology is being used to study lightning bolts. That's Monday at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. Tuesday, we'll look at a specialty court that focuses on veterans. Wednesday, how the justice system can better serve the underserved. And then at 8 o'clock Wednesday night, special edition of Arizona Horizon following the final presidential debate. Thursday, a debate on Proposition 205, which would legalize small amounts of marijuana. And Friday, it's another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.